President Donald Trump announced last Wednesday that in response to the estimated 3,000 to 5,000 Central American asylum seekers currently traveling through Mexico on their way to the United States, that he will send some 10,000 to 15,000 more troops to the U.S. southern border. And he went on to profess at a rally on Saturday, quote, "I saw that beautiful barbed wire going up, beautiful sight." Joining us now to discuss this dangerous new move from anti-immigration rhetoric to razor wire fences and armed soldiers on the border is the host of The World According to Jesse on RT America, former Governor Jesse Ventura.
Always a pleasure having you on, Governor. And I gotta start. What concerns you the most about deploying armed troops to the Mexico-U.S. border in response to people seeking asylum from their home countries?
Well, first of all, let's add, yes, I'm former governor, but I'm also a former United States Navy veteran. I served 4 years active duty and 2 years in the reserves. So I have 6 years in the United States military that I served from age 18 to 22 on active duty and all that. I'll tell you what bothers me the most. What bothers me the most in sending active duty military personnel to the border is that the president, in essence, is putting them in a position to commit war crimes. Because this is not an invading army. These are not armed people coming. These are women and children. They are old people. They are all sorts of people, but they are hardly a military force to be dealt with by our military. There's 16,000 Border Patrol guards down there, plus you got thousands of other personnel. 2,500 National Guardsmen are there for logistic reasons. I forget the high numbers you already have there. And he's talking about sending anywhere from 5,000 to 15,000 active duty military personnel. Now, I heard they're not frontline combat unit like he wants us to believe they are. They're mostly logistic people. But even still, this is ridiculous. It puts our military, I think it's the flagrant misuse of our military for political purposes, for him to look strong. And the reason he would do that is because he himself never served in the military. He doesn't really understand it. He thinks as commander-in-chief, he can inform them and tell them he can do anything he wants with them, and that somehow they're required to do it because he is the commander-in-chief.
Tell me, if you had been saying, as you said, you're a former soldier, what would your reaction to have been to receiving these orders? And honestly, would you have followed them?
Well, I don't know. That would be a real dilemma. That's a good question. You know, I served back in the 60s, back when there were a lot of unrest and demonstrations. It was towards the end of the Vietnam War. It had turned completely sour. It puts you as a military person into an extremely difficult position because your job is to defend against other militaries. Your job is to go to war. Your job is not necessarily to do police work because of the whim of the president and he wants to make a political statement. And I'd like to state this. You know, this president supposedly represents our evangelicals, the far right. I would ask them all to look in the mirror and dealing with these refugees coming up here and ask them, what would Jesus do? Would Jesus send 10,000 troops to the border with the order if you got rocks thrown at you, you were to shoot?
Yeah, it's pretty...
Probably not. And actually, some of the reports from Mexico that I saw over the weekend were showing that as they were going through towns, the Mexican people saying, what would Jesus do? High Catholic population. They were coming out with food, with clothes, helping them along the way. I mean, literally everywhere along the way. One reporter said you couldn't walk more than a few feet without free bottles of water and people walking around. So the Mexican people actually understand what Jesus would do, I think, a lot better than our president.
Well, absolutely. I saw the same thing, Tab. I saw where these poor Mexican towns were stepping forward with whatever they had to help these people. Why? Because that's what their religion teaches them to do. And yet we knock the Mexican people. I'll tell you what, I know for a fact, having lived down there as long as I have at certain times, they take religion a lot more serious, and they do it with real sacred views of real, not phony like up here.